Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Cade Monsell, and once again, I'm joined by my friend Andrew Duvall, and this is going to be our review for Uncharted from 2022. So, Andrew, Uncharted from 2022, what did you think of it?
All right. Well, before I get into anything talking about the movie itself, I need to state this first and foremost. I have not played the Uncharted games. They're on the backlog, but I don't have any background knowledge on the games themselves. I want to play them. There's about 10,000 other things I want to play at the same time.
Oh, you should eventually. They're fantastic games.
So I went into this movie with no background knowledge. I went into it because I like Tom Holland and it looked like a decent, fun little movie. And for the most part, it was. It's got a couple of scenes that I feel like kind of took me out of it. And I know we will be talking about one later. And I think you know the one I'm talking about, Kate.
Right.
But from everything I've been told by people who have played the games, this is not a good Uncharted movie. This is an all right treasure hunting movie on the level of something like National Treasure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think, yeah, as an Uncharted movie, it might not be as special, but as an adventure movie overall, I think it's decent. There were a lot of things that I did enjoy about this movie. I thought it was decent. I think I did like how it wasn't a full-on adaptation of any of the games. I liked how it used a sort of original narrative and treasure hunting plot to drive, Nate's motivation. I did like that. Tom Holland in general, I thought did a fine job as Nathan Drake. And I don't think he was like perfect casting, but I thought he was good as a younger Nathan Drake. The only big complaint that I had with his performance, as someone who has played all the games, to me, I don't think that he really developed that sort of confidence that Nathan Drake usually has. And I get that he's still younger at this point, but it was just something I was kind of hoping we could see. But overall, I thought he was fine as Nathan Drake. I also love all the references to the previous games. And I know you haven't played them, but some of them that I could go over is how the movie includes the character of Chloe, who was first introduced in the second Uncharted game. There's also the plane sequence in the movie, which is from the third Uncharted, which was also a lot of fun to play. I also loved how it was about, the treasure hunting plot was about finding a pirate treasure, which was the main plot for Uncharted 4. And I loved how it brought back Nate's brother from the games. I thought that was a good motivation for Nate's character to, his connection to Sam and wanting to fulfill his dream. But no, I did enjoy a lot about this movie. And I do think that one of the best things was the chemistry between Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. I thought that was kind of a lot of the heart of the film. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Honestly, I do not actually feel the same way about that one. I thought their chemistry was a bit off to me, and from what I've been told in hindsight, apparently Mark Wahlberg was a terrible version of Sully.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute though. Keep going though.
I, Again, there were some times where I thought they had really good chemistry and they played off each other really well. Other times it just kind of seemed like, I don't know, Mark Wahlberg was a bit pricklier than he really needed to be.
Yeah, I get what you mean. And I will tell you this one thing that I thought was really cool. I love the climax of the film, the final battle, where they have the two pirate ships being carried away. I thought that that was such a creative way to do the climax and how they fought off against their enemies. I thought that that was really cool to see. What did you think of it?
I thought it was a solid, decent. Again, to me, this is a solid treasure hunting movie. So it had a pretty solid end sequence. I thought the CG could have used a bit more touching up, but that's not a huge complaint.
But no, yeah, I did enjoy it for the most part. Although there were a couple of things that really did annoy me about this movie. One of the main ones was, in all honesty, I do like Mark Wahlberg as an actor, but as Sully, I was never really sold on. And ever since I had heard that he was cast as Sully, I was a little apprehensive because when I saw the movie, it just didn't really feel like I was watching Sully on the screen. And I get that they wanted to make their own version out of it, but to me, in the games, Sully is usually a sort of wise and charismatic character, and I just didn't really see a lot of that in this Sully.
Yeah, I saw more constantly on edge, over caffeinated stepdad,
Okay,
if that
I,
makes sense.
I guess that's one way to put it. I also wasn't a huge fan of how different it was from the games. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wasn't looking for it to be completely like the games. I was hoping that they'd make their own version out of it. But one of the biggest differences was the relationship between Nate and Sully, because this is supposed to be when Nate and Sully first meet each other. And I think Nate's supposed to be mid 20s at least. In the games, he met Sully when he was a kid. And I was kind of hoping we could have seen that in this movie, but I get that it was them trying to, make their own version out of it again. But it's just something that I was kind of hoping we could see. And that's mainly my biggest complaint with that. Now, I think the scene that we mentioned earlier that we want to talk about. So the part of the film when Nate and Chloe are exploring that underground tunnel and that big like puzzle and whatnot, there's that moment where it brings Sully to that Papa John's. Now, when I was watching it, there was a moment of like comedic relief where Sully said, "I'm literally in a Papa John's right now." That part was kind of funny, but then there does turn out to be a piece of the underground puzzle, that ancient keyhole in there, and then there's a whole fight sequence with the character Braddock in there. And for me personally, just as a guy who's played the Uncharted games, it just felt sort of bizarre that all that time that they spent was inside of a Papa John's, because again, I know you haven't played the games yet, but Uncharted is usually about you playing as Nate exploring deserted islands and ancient temples and tombs and whatnot. And if that scene had maybe taken place in another church or maybe possibly a museum, I would have been fine with it. But the best place that you could go for that scene was a Papa John's. I think that could have been something different.
Yeah, I think it kind of bad. That's one of those moments you get where they bash you over the head with the product placement a little too much, and it just doesn't really fit. I believe we discussed before, they could have easily had it be an old Italian restaurant, maybe like a converted church or something. I know that's happened before. Yeah, I just feel like that was a little. Again, sometimes you get bashed over the head with product placement a little too much. Like, not everything can be the Reese's Pieces from ET, one of the best product placement moments in film history.
Right.
Sometimes it's the McDonald's scene from Mac and Me, which I'm pretty sure is the first time anybody's brought that up in a review of Uncharted before.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, that was one of my biggest complaints, was the whole Papa John scene. But other than that, another big complaint I have would be the villains of this film. So we had the villain of Moncada and Braddock. And overall, I wasn't a huge fan of his character's like personality, but Moncada as a whole, I thought his motivation was interesting. How he felt, how the treasure was sort of his birthright, and that's why he wanted to claim it. I thought that was interesting, like a compelling motivation. And then we had the character of Braddock, that mercenary leader who simply just wanted the treasure out of greed. And when she, again, spoiler alert for anyone listening, when she eventually kills Moncada in order to keep the treasure for herself, I honestly think that that could have been a lot more interesting. But overall, I just thought that at the end, looking back at it, so instead of the villain with the, real personal connection for wanting the treasure, they just went with this other villain instead. And it just felt kind of odd and out of place to me.
Yeah, that number one, a villain switch like that has to be handled with care.
Yes, it does.
It has to, in my opinion at least, replace a complex villain with an even more complex villain. Like, I don't know if this is the best example, but the first one I can think of. The fact that Darth Vader is not really the main villain in Star Wars, it is Emperor Palpatine.
Yes. Yeah, I get what you mean.
I mean, I decently liked Moncada as a villain. I thought Antonio Banderas was chewing the scenery just enough to make him at least memorable. But yeah, just the fact that they replaced this villain who actually has this kind of established, deep rooted motivation with one of the most boring villains of last year, actually within the last several years. Yeah, that wasn't a great decision in my opinion.
No, yeah, I understand. But it didn't so much ruin the movie for me. It just made me wish that they could have taken it in a different direction. But that's the case with a lot of films. They don't go the direction that you think, and it just doesn't become how you'd expect it to be. But yeah, no, that's really, those are the biggest complaints I had with this movie. One thing I want to get back to that I did like, I really did like how it included a cameo from Nolan North, who, for anyone who doesn't know, played Nathan Drake in the games. I really enjoyed seeing that. I loved how when Nate and Chloe wash up on shore and they bump into him and they say, "We fell out of an airplane," and he says, "Huh, hey, something like that happened to me once." It was such a nice scene because that totally sounds like something that Nathan Drake as a character would say or bring up. And it really did feel like watching the Nathan Drake from the games come to life in some way, aside from seeing Tom Holland's Nathan Drake on the screen as well. So yeah, that was a nice moment to see.
Yeah, I thoroughly like that. And again, even as somebody who hasn't played the games, I still recognize Nolan North, and I'm like, oh, that's a nice touch.
It is a nice touch. And I also love what he says after they leave when he turns and he says to Nate or Tom Holland, he says, "Good luck." I thought that was a great way of, this is probably a bad way of looking at it, but I thought that was a great way of having the old Nathan Drake, praise the newer one. And I thought that was a nice touch to see.
Yeah, no, I completely get it.
But yeah, that's all I have to say about this movie. Anything else?
Uh, Not really. Again, to me, this seems like it was a decent treasure hunting movie, not a great Uncharted movie, from what I've been told. Which weirdly was kind of a theme in early 2022 because you had this in February, and then in March, I believe, you had the Halo TV series, which I heard was an all right sci-fi action series, but a terrible Halo series.
I have heard that. Yep. Well, you know what? Maybe I have heard that a sequel to Uncharted is in development, and maybe they'll try to make it a little bit closer to the games instead of making it a little too different. But time will tell, and I'll probably still watch that. I'm interested to see how it does. All right, so but for our rating for this movie, for Uncharted, what do you think you would give it on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's kind of a tough one to grade because, again, I don't have the background knowledge for it, but I did decently enjoy it. It's a decent little popcorn flick. So I'd say like a 6.75 to a 7. Because again, there were parts of it I did like, there were other parts of it I didn't like. And again, some of the scenes felt really, really bad. Looking at you, Papa John Saint.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think, yeah, I would probably give it a similar rating, probably a 7, because again, I did enjoy it. I had my issues with it that, prevent it from being ranked higher. But yeah, I did enjoy it and I would give it a solid 7 for a rating. So yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Good movie to review. I enjoyed talking about this with you. All right, guys, I guess that's all we have to say. I guess we'll see you later. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, we'll be back again. Thanks so much. Bye.